The juvenile justice system in the United States is in desperate need of reform. The U.S. currently imprisons more of its youth per capita than any other industrialized nation in the world. Every year, American police arrest nearly 2 million children, most for minor, nonviolent offenses. Today, more than 66,000 American youth are confined in juvenile facilities across the country. The total cost to taxpayers is more than $5 billion per year. Increasingly, the arrests are being made for minor behavioral problems that occur while students are at school. With the advent of strict zero-tolerance policies in public schools during the 1990s, schools began arresting, suspending, and expelling a growing number of students for a range of low-level offenses. In recent years, students have been arrested by police and removed from schools for offenses such as arriving late to school and talking back to teachers. At one school in Mississippi, a 5-year-old boy was removed from the school in handcuffs for not wearing black shoes, which violated the school's dress code. And at a school in Florida, a 6-year-old girl was recently arrested for throwing a tantrum. Critics say these tough zero-tolerance policies have criminalized normal childhood behavior. In the process, they have created a system that pushes American youth into a downward, almost inescapable spiral of crime, punishment, and poverty. The system, known as the school-to-prison pipeline, disproportionately affects the school's most vulnerable populations, including poor Black and Latino students and students with physical and emotional disabilities. To make matters worse, conditions in U.S. juvenile prisons are often inhumane, cruel, and brutally violent. At many facilities, incarcerated youth are beaten, raped, and psychologically traumatized by the very guards appointed to watch over them. As a result, juvenile centers generally do not reform the children that are sent there, but instead transform them into career criminals. And while youth incarceration rates have actually gone down in recent years, the number of youth in prison in the U.S. is still far greater than any other industrialized nation. Fortunately, there are bright, dedicated activists all around the country who are working hard to change the system and end the school-to-prison pipeline. One of the toughest and most effective activists pushing for reform today is Gina Womack, a Louisiana reformer with a powerful, unrelenting passion for justice. Womack, a lifelong resident of New Orleans, is a founding member and executive director of an organization known as FFLIC, Families and Friends of Louisiana's Incarcerated Children. Together with her staff, she is determined to empower families, reduce school suspensions, and promote more effective alternatives to youth incarceration.
We've met with some successes, but we won't stop until we rid our state from the policy that allows teachers and schools, the adults, the professionals, to suspend children for being children.
With her commitment and passion, Gina Womack has built a strong organization and has dedicated the last 2 decades of her life to bringing an end to zero-tolerance policies and to reforming the juvenile justice system.
I'm a mother, so any mother that suffers any issue that a parent comes to me about their child is particularly harsh to me, because I don't understand how children can be treated that way, and kids can be locked in cells, or and they're beaten and abused, and how families, when they need help, they can't get help.
In her fight against the system, Gina Womack has become a champion for incarcerated children and for the families who love them. She is a relentless fighter with a clear vision for a better future, and she will not quit until she achieves justice. This is her story. Gina Womack was born in New Orleans in 1962 in the Irish Channel section of the city, a working-class neighborhood adjacent to the Garden District. From an early age, she was deeply inspired by her family, which provided her with stability, confidence, and a strong sense of moral values. Gina was also profoundly and positively influenced by her local church, the Pleasant Zion Missionary Baptist Church on Toledano Street, where she still attends with her family. Through these 2 powerful influences, Gina learned the importance of helping out neighbors and extending a hand to those who need it.
There's always goodness in people. Like, everybody has something great inside of them. And there was a host of people that brought it out of me. My family is my rock.
As an adult, Womack spent most of her life working for nonprofits, but she didn't find her true calling until the late 1990s when she began working for the Juvenile Justice Project of Louisiana, a group focused on finding solutions to the state's juvenile delinquency issues. As part of her work there, Womack spoke with the families of incarcerated youth, and she was struck by how much these families cared for their children, which was the opposite of what she had been hearing in the media.
What was being said was that these were throwaway kids and no one cared about these kids, and there were, wasn't really many family members or anything like that. And so I distinctly remember talking to the moms, and the story I was getting was completely different. The moms were looking for help for their kids. Sometimes their children were getting into trouble and they were seeking assistance and services, just help. As a mother, that disturbed me, and I just couldn't understand. I couldn't reconcile what I was hearing and what the public opinion was and how different it was. And my heart just went out to the moms, and I just thought that it would be great if there was a support group, because what you heard all the time was that the families were isolated.
Initially, the group started with modest goals. Womack's first impulse was just to bring families together so they could provide each other with mutual support. But over time, she realized the power and potential of the group, and in late 2001, FFLIC was born as a more formal organization.
And once the parents got together and they were able to feel so supported by other family members and recognize that they were not going through this by themselves, that they were mothers struggling to care for their kids. But once they got together, it was a whole different ballgame. And the conversation was that, there was someone that they could identify with. Immediately the support was happening.
One of the things that most impressed Womack was the powerful compassion that families showed each other. People were not just asking for help, they were actively looking for ways that they could help others. The support families gave to each other made Womack realize how important the organization could become. FFLIC was not just comforting families, it was building a sense of community.
They want to all give back because this is a place where they can express themselves and they can do some of the things that they've always wanted to do, and we just try to provide the support for that.
And as the families talked, Womack listened and learned. And the more families shared their stories, the more it became obvious that something much bigger was going on. There was a whole pattern of injustice that they were able to identify, and it was going on statewide.
It wasn't just about one parent or one child. It was clear that there was some systems malfunction, and the families wanted to do something about it.
As a group, they began to fight against zero-tolerance policies and demand that violent and inhumane prisons be shut down. They began to move past individual families and take on the system, and they began to win. FFLIC's first big project was to shut down Swanson Correctional Center for Youth, a brutal youth prison located in Monroe, Louisiana. Known informally as Tallulah, the prison was widely considered one of the most notorious and inhumane juvenile prisons in the entire country. To shut it down, FFLIC joined with the Juvenile Justice Project and launched the campaign, Close Tallulah Now. Although it was their first major effort, they were hugely successful, and within 2 years the prison was shut down.
Back in the year 2000, when we first started doing this work, they had over 2,000 children locked behind bars. They were being beaten and raped. I mean, it was just a ridiculous situation. Today, we have less than 500 children locked in prison in the state prison system. So that was huge. And it's because of the families, right? Because they were brave enough to come and tell their stories. They, even through being ostracized and people thinking down about them and talking bad about them, they shared their stories and they fought and we won.
Although things have improved significantly, Womack still talks with emotion and conviction about punishments that are often completely out of proportion to the misbehavior.
I remember this one child, he had stolen a Hot Pocket and a Pepsi. And he was arrested and he was ushered into prison. And while he was there, he was beaten so badly that like his whole intestinal situation was ruined. And that was, you can't reconcile you just can never reconcile that to what actually happened.
But each story of injustice makes Womack all the more determined to change the system and replace it with something more humane, sensible, and just. Her work is certainly cut out for her, but she is fortunate to have a determined and dedicated team by her side. And she has chosen that team carefully. In general, she prefers to hire people who have had some direct experience with the prison system.
We really hire folks who come to us that have been affected by the issues, right? Either through personal, experience or by virtue of being African American, right? And their children or grandchildren in some way or somehow has been affected by the system.
One of FFLIC's most well-regarded and widely admired employees is Ernest Johnson, a humble, compassionate, and sincere man who was once incarcerated himself. As a former felon, Johnson knows what FFLIC's clients are going through, and he understands how powerful the organization's support can be. When his own son got into legal trouble, FFLIC's help was a vital lifeline for him.
I felt isolated and didn't know where I was going to get any support from, and FFLIC came along and gave me the support I needed to understand the systemic system and how juvenile justice procedures go. So it gave me an opportunity to learn and get some training how to develop and advocate for my son, myself. When you bring a holistic approach and believe in people at their lowest point, I think it gives people the power, it empowers them in a way that say, I can change, there's someone there for me. And we try not to be the parents of those social ills and just hold people by the hand, but give them the necessary tools to move forward.
Womack seems to be genuinely inspired and motivated by the people she works with every day.
We have an amazing team of people because everyone that you interview, they come tirelessly, regardless of their personal situation that's happening. And I am always amazed because some have actually lost a child. Some have children that are in adult prison, and they have to live with that and deal with that on a daily basis. But in spite of, they come to meetings because they need to fight for their child and all of the children. Like, it's the thing that gets me up every morning, right? None of this could happen without their strength and their courage.
And Gina's staff speaks just as highly of her.
Gina is a fireball of grassroots knowledge. She is a wonderful, warm-hearted, loving person who is doing exactly what she needs to be doing for our children.
I think she's perfection as a leader. I mean, I've worked with a lot of people that are running organizations and done a lot of program directing. I think she's absolutely amazing.
I'm honored to be sitting here talking about her, but she's just amazing. She'll look at anybody on the street and go, they can do this, they can do that. She has faith in people that don't believe that they have faith in their own self. So she's great at that. She's great at that.
It's like, Gina, she pulls things out of you that you don't know that existed.
She's very smart and she's very giving. And ever since that first meeting and getting involved with FFLIC, she happened to be the angel that our family needed, because we fell on we went down a rabbit hole with that school and prison pipeline.
She's very supportive to these families. I mean, it's amazing. She opens her heart and gives and gives and gives.
When you feel her, when you're talking to her, when she's working, when she's coming up with ideas, she's incredibly smart and she gets it. And you feel that, you're just pulled right in. It's like being lit up. I think she's as good as it gets in terms of working with an organization and then using the talents and the passion of the people that work with her. She knows how to create that circle.
She's been around, a lot these past 2 years, from just checking into, helping other people out around the country. We've created that relationship where I can easily say that she's like, a second mother to me. So
I feel that if I had somebody like Gina I got to know somebody like Gina, to be around me when I was younger. We've definitely done better.
In addition to their work reforming juvenile prisons, FFLIC has also focused on the school-to-prison pipeline, which is in many ways the starting point of it all. At the statewide level, more than 86,000 students are suspended from Louisiana schools each year, about 12% of all students, which is nearly twice the national average. An additional 7,000 students are expelled each year, bringing the total to nearly 100,000 who are severely disciplined, a significant number considering there are just over 700,000 students in the entire state.
Once we started looking at the school-to-prison pipeline, our goal was to really look at reducing the number of children who have been suspended, right? And so we've been able to reduce those numbers. I feel largely because of the work that we were doing on a systems level.
Over time, the organization has developed 3 core goals. First, to transform families into empowered and active citizens with real leadership skills. Second, to reduce the number of students who are suspended from Louisiana schools. And third, to reduce the state's reliance on incarceration as a solution to behavioral problems.
A huge part of our work is around transformation. It's about personal transformation. And so when our families go from being beaten down and having a hard time to support themselves, not just financially, but emotionally. And then something happens and they feel emotionally available for themselves, their families, and other family members, like that's huge, right?
What FFLIC does is work with the whole situation. They get to know the family, they get to know the youth, and they also work legislatively. Because in the world and this country, the way we're moving, if we don't change some of the bills and the laws and make it more holistic for people who have always been pushed out, continue to be, then I don't know how we're going to make a real change. But they don't give up and they remain hopeful. And I think that that helps all of us to do that because the work is hard and your heart breaks a lot of the time. So you have to be part of a community like this one, and I think that's one of the striking things about FFLIC, is that it is a community.
As the leader of FFLIC, Womack has created a culture that is visibly positive, empowering, and constantly open to input from its members.
Everybody's treated with respect. Everybody has a voice. Everybody's opinion matters.
I like that people can tell their stories. Again, some of our members have been incarcerated. They have their loved ones that are incarcerated, and FFLIC is that backbone for them that when nobody else wants to hear, they can express themselves in the chapter meetings, and just if they can't get something done, FFLIC can be right there behind them. When they get out, they know that we're here to help them.
By bringing families together and offering them opportunities to help each other, Womack and her team are creating a new reality, a reality in which families feel empowered, inspired, and determined to make things change. Indeed, their work has already resulted in several important improvements, and they don't seem ready to stop anytime soon.
Again, you know that in order for change to happen, in order to help themselves, they have to help others. And recognizing that their liberation is, where all of our liberation is tied together.
I mean, FFLIC has made a big difference, has made a big impact in the community. You know, and that's the thing that's so beautiful about FFLIC is that the families are involved and the families' voices are heard, and besides being heard, action is taken.
I'm going to be in until the end. Like the fighter said, I fought every round. I didn't win, but I'm still fighting. So, you know, I feel like with FFLIC and Gina and Johnson, I'm going to win. Because they're winners, Gina's a winner.
And then we go to the Capitol, and the folks don't like seeing us come because we've been coming for years, and we're going to keep coming until we get justice.